Hello everyone. This is the last section of our topic, the genital system development. We are talking about the clinical correlates. In this section, we'll talk about the clinical correlates of the uterus as well as the vagina. We'll see what happens if the normal developmental process that was supposed to take place does not go as planned. So, let's see what happens. So we can have a double uterus with a double vagina. So a double uterus and a double vagina are shown in the figure. We have two uteruses and two vaginas. It occurs due to complete lack of fusion of the terminal portions of the paramesonephric ducts. And this portion is formed by the uterine portion is formed by the paramesonephric ducts and the sinovaginal bulbs. This portion is formed by the sinovaginal bulb. So it is due to complete lack of fusion between the two paramesonephric ducts and the sinovaginal bulbs. The individual might have two uteruses as well as two vaginas with a septum in between. So we can have a double uterus with a single vagina. In this condition, the paramesonephric ducts, they fail to fuse. However, they come to lie close to each other. As a result, the uterus is entirely double, which is also known as uterus didelphys. And the vaginal plate is formed in relation to each duct. However, since the uterus are lying close to each other, they fuse with each other to form a single vagina. So this is a single vagina, and there are two separate uteruses formed in this individual. So bicornuate uterus, the body of the uterus is duplicated. So this is the body of the uterus, this is the cervical region. So the body of the uterus is duplicated. Each half of the body is called the horn or cornu of the uterus, hence the name bicornuate uterus. One fallopian tube opens in each horn or the cornu. It occurs when the paramesonephric duct fuses with each other only in the lower parts. So the fusion of there's a partial fusion of the paramesonephric duct. The paramesonephric duct fuse with each other only in the distal portion, as a result of which the cervical portion is common. However, the body of the uterus has been divided. So they remain separate in the upper part, thus giving rise to two separate horns of the uterus. So here you can see these are the two separate horns. This is the cervical portion and this is the vagina. So a unicornuate uterus. So half of the uterus is missing. Here you can see half of the uterus is formed and half of the uterus is missing. Occurs when one paramesonephric duct degenerates so that only one horn of the fallopian tube persists. One horn of the uterus with one fallopian tube persists. So what happens is one paramesonephric duct on one side, it degenerates. As a result, only one fallopian tube with one horn of uterus persists and results in the formation of unicornuate uterus. So this is the unicornuate uterus and this is the degenerated portion. So moving on, we have a septate uterus. So the two paramesonephric ducts, they fuse with each other, but the septum separating them, it does not disintegrate, as a result of which the cavity of the uterus is halved due to the presence of a vertical septum. Here in the figure, this is the normal uterus, and this is a uterus that has been completely separated by a complete septum. In this, there is partial septum, so partially separated partial septate uterus has been formed. So moving on, we have agenesis of uterus and infantile uterus. So what is the agenesis of uterus? In agenesis of uterus, the uterus does not form completely. It is due to the lack of formation of paramesonephric ducts. In infantile uterus, the adult female possesses a much smaller than normal uterus. The infantile uterus might resemble the uterus that is before puberty. Vagina and ovaries are usually normal. Now, clinically, the patient may present as amenorrhea. So, moving on, we now have agenesis of vagina. Now, the vagina is absent or has not been formed in its entirety or some segment of it. It occurs when the urogenital sinus, it fails to form the sinovaginal bulbs and hence the vaginal plate. We know that urogenital sinus forms the sinovaginal bulbs, which form the sinovaginal plate and help in the formation of the vagina. If this does not take place, the vagina might not be formed. Here you can see this is the uterus, this is the cervix. The cervix is atratic and the vagina has not been formed completely. So, absence of vagina is usually associated with the absence of uterus and the uterine tubes. It is usually associated with these anomalies. So, atresia of vagina. Atresia is usually tightening. Let's see what happens. It occurs when vaginal plate fails to get canalized. So we talked about this earlier. The vaginal plate, which is formed by the sinovaginal bulb, undergoes canalization to form the lumen of the vagina. If this canalization does not take place, it results in the formation. It results in atresia of the vagina. So in the figure here, you can see this is the open part of the vagina, and below this open part, this is atresia of the vagina, in which the part of the in which the lumen of the vagina has not been formed. Sometimes only the middle part of the vaginal plate fails to disintegrate, giving rise to a horizontal septum in the lumen of the vagina. So sometimes what happens is the upper part of the vagina is normal, the lower part of the vagina is normal. However, the middle part of the vagina, it does not undergo recanalization, as a result of which it's atratic in that part and a horizontal septum has been formed. So what is imperforate hymen? So imperforate hymen occurs when the endodermal cells of the vaginal plate, which lie adjacent to the urogenital sinus, they fail to disintegrate. So the endodermal cells, which are of the vaginal plate and are lying adjacent to the urogenital sinus, they fail to disintegrate. This causes the retention of the menstrual flow, and this clinical condition is known as hematocolpus. So it can result in the formation of hematocolpus. So a fistula is a communication between two organs or two sites which is open at both the ends. In vesico-vaginal fistula, there is communication between the urinary bladder and the vagina, as a result of which urine may dribble into the vaginal cavity. Similarly, in the recto-vaginal fistula, there is communication between the rectum as well as the vagina, as a result of which the rectal contents might spew off into the vaginal cavity. So both of these are not warranted in a patient. So this was all about the clinical correlates of this section. In this section, we talked about the clinical anomalies that occur due to developmental delays or developmental abnormalities of uterus as well as the vagina. I hope you understood it and found them interesting. For further lectures, keep watching sqadia.com.